think now is a good time for us to take a critical eye to what our patriotism, what our nationalism actually looks like, and how it affects our day-to-day, and indeed how much of it, whether consciously or unconsciously, is indeed religious, and to critically assess how much of that we can really get behind. So today we're going to take a look at American civil religion from a pluralist lens, and hopefully shed some light on how much of this stuff we sort of just take for granted and take as normal. As an undergraduate student at Christopher Newport University, studying religious studies, one of the things that was so common as to become a cliche in every, especially lower level religious studies classes, on day one was the question, how do we define religion? Right? Because every definition we seem to come up with falls short, right? Here's some examples from the Oxford Dictionary. The belief in and worship of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or gods. Well, I think our Buddhist friends would like a chat about that, right? Not to mention our Unitarian friends, but that's a given, right? A particular system of faith and worship. Okay, that's getting closer, but it really depends how we define faith and worship, doesn't it? A pursuit or interest to which someone ascribes supreme importance. Ooh, that's getting better. Now, put a pin in. I'm going to come back to that one, actually, because we're going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to talk about one of the challenges that I face as a clergy person with that. So, and some other ones. I promised I wouldn't start this off with the line Webster's Dictionary defines, but a personal set or institutionalized system of religious attitudes, beliefs, and practices. You can't use the word religious in a definition of religion. That's cheating. The service and worship of God or the supernatural, again, really falls short. A cause, principle, or system of beliefs held to with ardor and faith. Okay, that's getting closer. I actually really like looking at them when I'm trying to come up with a definition of a word, and this is especially true in religious context when we go back sometimes thousands of years. I enjoy looking at things etymologically. So, we get our word religion, potentially from the Latin religio, which refers to an obligation, a bond, or some special reverence, or potentially from the Latin religare, which means to bind. So religion may be to what we bind ourselves. Ooh. In the spirit of liberal and liberating religion, that's a tricky thing to think about, isn't it? We might be bound to our religion. The best definition I've come up with, the best litmus test for is something a religion or not, comes to me by way of one of my favorite professors, Dr. John Thompson, when he quoted Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart when asked to describe his test for obscenity back in 1964. He said, "I know it when I see it." And that may be the best operative definition we have of religion. Especially, Dr. Thompson instilled my love of Chinese religion into me. And, things like Confucianism and Taoism really frustrate the ideas of religion. It's what kept, especially Westerners, from calling them more philosophies than religions for a very long time. But the truth is they're more than just a philosophy. They are a life-changing set of beliefs. So I know it when I see it. So, what are some things to look for to see religion? And I've got some slides on this one. So if you don't mind, Marcy, one of the things that I think we look for is sacred artifice, right? Artifacts, relics that are treated with a particular reverence. And one of them is the flag. Now, this is a very intentional use. I talked about an interest or pursuit to which someone ascribes supreme importance. Let me tell you, specifically as a Christian clergy person, what frustrates me so much about the flag in the sanctuary. Legally, or at least, I don't know if it's legally binding, but at least according to the rules, according to the flag code, no flag may be given a position of prominence over the United States flag, which means if you have a flag, in this case, a United States flag and a Christian flag in a Christian sanctuary, the American flag has to take prominence. That creates a serious conflict of interest, doesn't it? In fact, there's only one exception to this, and that is the church pennant may be flown above the flag during church services performed by naval chaplains at sea. So you have to be in international waters, and you have to be a Navy chaplain to be able to put Jesus above the United States of America. It's not just troubling. It's not just an issue of forcing us to confront where our priorities lie, but it is the idea right there in the flag code that the flag represents a living country and is itself considered a living thing. That rubs me the wrong way. Right? Another thing we might look for. What does religion look like? I know it when I see it. Creeds and confessions, right? The kind of thing we come here to escape. Now, a confession is not a creed necessarily. A creed is something to be bound to, religare. But a confession is simply a statement of belief. In that sense, actually, our Article 2 is a confession. No? It is a covenant. There we go. Okay, so creeds, confessions, and covenants. Let's add that to the list. All right. One such creed, one such confession is the obvious issue of manifest destiny. Fairly unique to the United States. Religiously inspired. God wants us to have all of this land and rule it. And we'd love to think that's a thing of our past. I don't think it is. Another might be the Pledge of Allegiance, which is also a covenant. It is an oath, in fact. Do we agree with every word of the Pledge of Allegiance? Would you feel comfortable standing in a church if you were visiting someone maybe and reciting the Apostles' Creed if you didn't agree with every word of it? Do we feel that same discomfort when we stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? Oaths that are taken by those who accept office, right? I swear to defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Members of our elected bodies, members of our armed forces, swear these sorts of oaths. And actually, I'll tell you one of my biggest, this is a side note, one of my biggest frustrations with institutional religion is the tendency of that institution to expect its adherents to bind themselves not to the object of worship, but to the institution built around it, right? We're told, for instance, to swear allegiance to a bishop, or to a church, or to the Bible, or to a creed, rather than the God we're supposed to be here to worship, right? And these elements of American civil religion pose the exact same frustration for me. I pledge allegiance to the flag and the republic for which it stands. I swear to defend the Constitution. Nowhere are we actually talking about the people that make up this country. It's the ideas. And the problem with elevating ideas above people is it's easy to begin dehumanizing people for the sake of ideas. Something else we would look for, I think, to what religion looks like is sacred literature. Scripture, the Bible, the Tanakh, the Quran, the Analects, the Tao Te Ching, the entire Tipitaka for that matter, right? All sorts of sacred literature treated with a certain reverence. But we have that in our Declaration of Independence, in our Constitution. Have you not heard people call these things sacred? We elevate them above human importance. We give them, in fact, religious importance. That word sacred, you cannot separate that from the idea of religion. Now, with the exception of our Mormon brothers and sisters, that uniquely American religion that does, in fact, include as part of its core beliefs that the governing documents of the United States are of divine inspiration and provided by divine guidance. I can't quite square that belief with most any other belief system. And yet we have the Declaration of Independence, the United States Constitution, included in so many patriotic Bibles that are being sold right now. Have you seen any of that, right? As if they are part of words spoken straight from the divine mouth. Sacred music is often an element of music as well, or element of religion as well. And we certainly have patriotic hymns. Robin played America the Beautiful on our way in with a beautiful minor turn at the end, by the way. That hit me. But there are all sorts of hymns. Our national anthem is meant to be sung with a certain sense of reverence and always standing with the hand over the heart or in a salute, facing either the flag or the source of music. These are religious rituals. Some other examples of what religion looks like: sacred architecture. And I do have one slide for this as well. Now, at the top, we see the Lincoln Memorial, which was, this is no coincidence, explicitly designed to resemble the Temple of Zeus in ancient Greece, with a statue of Abraham Lincoln in the middle as the object of reverence. The Jefferson Memorial, again, explicitly designed to resemble the Roman Pantheon, with the dome on top, because we all know Tommy J loves domes. The Washington Monument, in the form of an obelisk, which dates back to ancient Egypt, but was also later co-opted by ancient Rome, right? Both of which cultures revered their rulers as gods. So like so many empires before and after them, they had a concerning conflation of civil and religious life. And so the implications, I think, of the obelisk are troubling, along with the Greek and Roman architecture as well. But Michael, we don't revere our founding fathers as gods. Next slide, please. In the rotunda of the Capitol building is this beautiful mural entitled The Apotheosis of Washington. And if you don't know that word apotheosis, it means the attainment of godhood. And next slide, we'll zoom in on Georgie. There he is, seated in a position of honor among these celestial beings. And interestingly enough, in a skirt or a dress, still with the sort of dress shirt up top, but definitely with the skirt on the bottom, because the flowing garment, of course, reminiscent of so many, especially Western deific images. We won't get too heavy. I really thought about digging into this, and I'm going to try to stop myself. We won't get too much into the object in the hand of the celestial being to his right. A bundle of rods with an axe in it called a fasces, which is the root of exactly that word you're thinking of, and a reproduction of which can be seen on either side of the dais of our Chamber of House of Representatives. But anyway. Yeah, well, I mean, I basically did. The only thing I don't have is the pictures I was going to put in here, right? The fasces, which represented the power even absolute power, with the axe to include the power to take a life. The idea that it's placed in our House of Representatives ostensibly means the power is in the hands of the people. Do y'all feel like the House of Representatives represents the people at this point? Okay. Anyway, I'm getting entirely too political from the pulpit right now, but we are talking about American civil religion and the unfortunate overlap of religious and civil life in this empire, as in so many in the past, right? So next slide, we'll zoom back out because as troubling as it is, that is pretty to look at. So there's a lot in our architecture, in our artifice, in our literature, in our creeds and confessions and music. There are so many things which it's kind of impossible to deny. I don't know. That there are at least religious elements to our patriotic culture. And I'm not here to get conspiracy theory about it. I'm really not. I know, talking to an Episcopal priest friend of mine about this specific mural, he said, you know, George Washington was a good Anglican. He would shudder at the idea that he was being ascribed godhood. And when it comes to the architecture, you know, Freemasons love to borrow things from other cultures. We convince ourselves that they're all our brethren anyway. So we're not really borrowing from other cultures. We're borrowing from our brethren from different times and places. Okay. And if I have to show my dues card to claim the we on that one, I will. Okay. So this isn't some grand conspiracy. But I think this is something that's gotten out of hand. Now, if I were preaching this to a Christian church, I would call this idolatry, and I wouldn't flinch when I said it. But we really don't do idolatry here, and that's fine. We don't, because we have so many different people with so many different views, we cannot say this is sacred and this is profane, right? As a denomination, as a congregation. But potentially, for those of us individually who have been unaware of the importance and significance, we have been unconsciously subscribing or ascribing to things. We might find that within our own systems, this is not internally consistent. That we might be guilty of idolatry, of a certain idolatry of violating our own values and principles as individuals, right? So this is the significance of critically assessing these things to make sure we're not participating in any religious activity we disagree with. Civil religion is nothing new, nor is it exclusively the property of empire. It exists in all kinds of cultures from all times and places as a means of inculcating common values through a mixture of history, folklore, and ceremonial practice, and it's not necessarily harmful. But if we're not careful, it can quickly become a nationalistic imperial cult, which begins to elevate those loyal to it while degrading and dehumanizing those who are not. All of this, not to mention the looming threat of Christian nationalism. And if y'all thought this was going to be a sermon specifically on Christian nationalism, I'm sorry to disappoint you. No, this affects every one of us. This has been something that's made its inroads into every one of our lives. But Christian nationalism would not be able to have the foothold it has without the ample foundation of American civil religion, up to and including the deification of our leaders. And that's important to recognize. This is also not to mention the implicit white supremacy and patriarchy and all kinds of troublesome things that come with this form of civil religion, of elevating a certain set of people and even deifying them. So to take this same prevailing attitude, amplify it, and put a thin veneer of a certain brand of churchianity over it is really all you need for the recipe for Christian nationalism. So absolutely, this is part of the problem that faces our country, but let's not pretend like this isn't a problem we need to confront as well. I do want to sort of recap. I didn't come here today to be overly cynical. I didn't come here to be mean or to peddle any sort of conspiracy theory, nor do I mean to insult our country and its traditions. But rather, in the spirit of liberal religion, I think it of utmost importance that we critically assess all of our religious indoctrination, both conscious and unconscious, including our civil religion, and decide which points of it we can accept, to what degree, and which we must reject. To that point, there are folks among us who will fully embrace all that American civil religion is, and that's okay. There are folks among us who will reject every aspect of American civil religion, and that's okay. In the spirit of pluralism, we cannot tell one person's beliefs are right and one are wrong. But what we must insist is that we cannot tell anybody else that they must value these things highly or that they must value them lowly. Today was not an attempt to tell you what to believe, but rather to remind you of the unconscious, I don't want to use the word indoctrination, the unconscious information that has been fed to us since early days in this country, so that we can each of us take a look through this lens and continue to deconstruct and reassess and reconstruct what is good of our own beliefs. So to that end, I hope that today has been informative, enlightening, and helpful. Thank you.